Man, how would you benefit from a resource in your life that was dedicated 100% to your personal development? Well, you have found it, my friends. This podcast is dedicated to you to help you do what we call Summit Life's Climb. It's dedicated specially for you to help you in the areas of life that matter most, with practical resources and tools that you can use to grow in your personal life. My name's Rob Stout. I'm your host. Welcome to the next stage, and we are really excited that you're here. I'm so excited about the 4 episodes that we're in. Last week, we covered a really critical episode called Passion, and it's one of 4 P's that are part of a foundational set of elements for your life. Picture 4 foundational pillars that you're building your life on. And those pillars are passion, purpose, power, and perspective. And yes, there's alliteration there. Yes, it's on purpose. And yes, it's so you can remember it. But passion, purpose, power, perspective. Picture 4 pillars for your life to help you guide and form your life. And if you are a dad, or you have a father or a son or a daughter that you want to impact, figure out how you can practically pass these on to them. We're in the middle of a setup, really 4 series to help us guide on those 4 principles. And last episode, we covered passion, living a life of passion. This week, we're diving into an episode that I'm really excited about, and that is talking about living a life of power. Living a life of power. So listen up, lean in. I'm excited you're here, and let's get started. I want to ask you a question as we get started. How does this apply to everyday life in your world, where you are built, the background you have, where you work, where you live, your life, not a make-believe life, but the life you have? What does it look like? To get us started, I'm going to share a story. I do that a lot. Unfortunately, this is where I am the hero, and that rarely happens, but this happened to be pretty awesome, okay? So I'm rarely the hero in the story, but here goes. I was driving up the highway one day, headed to a lunch appointment, and I was pretty casual. I looked good. Had some cowboy boots on, had a cool pair of jeans, black t-shirt, had my Oakley sunglasses on, and I'm cruising up the highway. I was meeting a couple guys for lunch, and I was going through a cone zone on the highway. They were doing some work. And this particular day, there was some work on the side, and I could see that there was a truck that was kind of easing in from the left-hand side into what was the fast lane. So I kind of slowed down a little bit. I was right behind the truck. I was a big box van type of truck, and could see that it was getting its way in. So I slowed down a bit. He goes in and tries to speed up really fast and goes over to the right lane and then comes back to the left lane. And I could see this guy was in trouble. And all of a sudden, this truck just kind of teeters and falls on its side. Fluid starts draining out of the truck. I hit my brakes. The guy in back of me stops. I jump out of the truck again. Red F-150, looking good, boots, jeans, black tee. I signal to the guy in back of me. I'm like, call 911. And I ran up to this truck and looked in the front window, which was, was on his side. And these 2 dudes are sitting in the truck with their seatbelts on. Thank goodness they had their seatbelts on. But they're sitting in the truck sideways. And I'm like, are you okay? And they're like, they looked all right. Nobody was bleeding or anything. But I was like, we got to get him out of the truck. And so I climb up the bottom, which was the side of the truck. The wheels are spinning. And again, some fluid is draining out on the ground. And I had seen enough episodes of, like emergency rescue and that type of stuff that I knew somebody had to do something. So I climbed up the truck. Nobody was there yet. No police or first responders or anything. Climbed up the side of the truck, jumped on the door and opened the door up. I felt like I was on some 911 show or something like that. I reached in. I'm like, are you guys okay? And they said, yeah, I think so. And so we pulled him out of the truck. By that time, a couple other people had come, and they were just helping him get down and stuff like that. And the one guy, his biggest concern was, where's my cell phone? Maybe he was looking at his cell phone when the truck dropped over. I don't know. But we helped him get down, and by this time, a nurse who was one of the cars in back had walked up and she was checking them out and they were okay. And I'm like, hey, there's fluid out the back of your truck. And they were like, it's really okay. It's just water. We were hauling water for this job site. So I look around and things started to calm down at that point, and somebody who called 911. So there were first responders coming, and I just kind of looked around and thought, my job here is done. Jumped back in my truck, took off, went to lunch. And later I found out that I needed to stick around and give a statement to the police about what was going on, and I didn't do that. So it could be that there is a arrest warrant out for this mystery man in this red F-150 with cool boots, a great pair of jeans, black T-shirt, who was just kind of this action hero guy who showed up and saved the day. I don't know, probably not. Probably nobody said a thing. But I went to lunch and I came home that night and I told my wife about this. And I was like, baby, you are married to a superhero. And she looks at me with her deadpan look that she's got. And she said, I'll bet I am. Man, I wonder how many times in your life, maybe not that dramatic, but how many times are you in your life called upon to show up and deliver some strength that somebody else needs? How many times in your life, and maybe it's not rescuing some guys in a truck on the side of the road, or maybe it's not quite so dramatic, but in your life every day, how often are you called upon to show up at work, in your neighborhood, when somebody's in distress, when a kid needs you, when a friend needs somebody to talk to? How many times are you required to show up? The answer, men, is every day. You are irreplaceable. You are needed where you live. You are needed in your community, where you work, with people around you, to correct things that are wrong in your world, to sometimes rescue situations. Just showing up is something strong. In this episode, I want to talk about living a life of disciplined power. It's part of Passion, Power, Purpose, Perspective. We're focusing on disciplined power. Just as we discussed in our last episode, I believe that these things are designed, intelligently designed, and I believe it's by God. You can believe that or not. We can talk about that later. But I believe that God has designed us to live with these 4 P's in mind. They're foundational to our life. This word power really comes from an ancient word, and it gets to a little bit of kind of the universal nature of these things that we're talking about in these 4 P's. We're talking about where we get our word strength and where power comes from an ancient Hebrew word. And that word is ma'od, M-E hyphen like O-D. It's an adverb that describes an action as very or much. So when it talks about living with strength or with power, it's living with muchness, with very strong, very passionate, very attentive, very thoughtful, very powerful. It's a word of how you show up in your life. And really, if you start to give this more imagery, and a lot of cultures around the world have, it really comes into the imagery of the warrior side of a man that shows up and that fights for good. This type of imagery is all over the ancient and the modern world, from ancient Africa to Mesopotamia, Semitic cultures, Indian cultures, Chinese, Japanese cultures, Egyptian, Russian, Assyrian, Persian, Babylonian, you name it, Greek, Roman, Germanic tribes, and also in our modern day culture. A book I read once on this whole subject of these 4 pillars in our life was written by 2 men named Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette. They wrote a book called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, and it walks through the male psyche and an anthropological look at men. And listen to what they say as they take a look at this power, this energy, this strength, this manhood, this warrior side of men. They say that this warrior energy then is, no matter what else it is indeed universally present in men and the civilizations that we create, defend, and extend. It is a vital ingredient in our world building and plays an important role in extending the benefits of the highest human virtues and cultural achievements to all of humanity. Let me repeat that. It plays a vital ingredient in our world building and plays an important role in extending the benefits of the highest human virtues and cultural achievements to all of humanity. These two social psychologists do an anthropological look at this side of men and say, you know what? It is universal. It's in every culture, and it has to do with how we show up in the male psyche. It's universally true and calls us to the highest of human virtues. The point in this whole setup is that your power is a good thing and was made to be used for good. And I realize even as we walk into this that there is a lot of tension in even this topic, that there is an entire culture out there who would try to downplay that, to get rid of it, to even exterminate it out of men because of some of the inherent problems that we have brought on ourselves. The problem is that we have messed up a lot of things. And instead of living to what Moore and Gillette call the highest human virtues, men have caused their own set of problems. Their own set of problems. And yet, men, as we lean into this, as we take a look at this pillar of power in our life, it is essential that we take a look at some of the enemies that face us in the form of messages that would seek to derail us, messages that would seek to pull us away from this highest of human virtues, and that would sideline us to not show up, to not be the men that we were intended to be, to not lean into this pillar, to maybe even discard it all the way. There's a problem that we have in some of the messages that we receive or that we buy into. Let's just cover a couple of them. Some of the messages that would speak against you leaning into your power, your God-given strength, that warrior spirit that is in you. One of those messages is, you're not good enough. Anybody have that? You're not good enough. It's like when you step up and you want to step into a situation or step out or show up, it's like there's this little voice, this little guy who lives on your shoulder who whispers in your ear, you're not good enough. A few years ago, a friend of mine, Peter, in a moment of transparency and openness and vulnerability, he looked at me and he said, you know what, Rob? You hide your power. Took me a minute to digest that, and I thought, you know what? I do. I hide my power. I'm afraid to step out because of what someone else might say, and really, that is buried in the message, you're not good enough. The second message is that we hear a lot of times when we are called upon to step up and step into a situation, it says somebody else will do it. Somebody else will do it. It's classic bystander syndrome. Social psychologist John Darley and Bib Latournay, I believe is how you pronounce his word in fancy French, which I don't know how to speak. But they did a series of studies in the late 60s where they'd studied bystander syndrome, where the more people who are involved in a scene, when called upon to intervene, the less likely people are to intervene in that. We saw this in the George Floyd murder, where two cops were there, and there were lots of cops around this scene, lots of pedestrians, and nobody stepped up to say, stop. Stop what's going on. Pay attention to what you're doing to this man. Ultimately, George Floyd was murdered. Not only you're not good enough or somebody else will do it, but how about this message? Somebody else stepping in and saying, let me do it for you. My friends, let me do it for you is something that we do to people all the time. My wife is a second grade teacher. She calls it snowplow parenting, where she sees parents who just, hey, let me do it for you. They don't just helicopter and kind of hover around. No, they snowplow, and they want to remove every obstacle available and every obstacle that could possibly get in that kid's way so that they would not experience any problems in their life. They would not experience anything that would get in their way. They would not experience any trauma at all. The reality is we grow through having to face tough times. We grow through having to negotiate challenges, through walking through disappointment, through getting scraped up, through making mistakes. We learn, and we learn to be stronger as human beings. So snowplow parenting, man, I'll tell you what, forget about it. Let me do it for you ultimately has a hook in it, doesn't it? It enables us to maybe feel good about ourselves, but it disables the person who needs to grow strong. Let me give you one other message, and it's a societal message when it comes to this area of strength and needing to step into your power. It's the message that your power is evil. Your power is evil. Have you heard that before? In a number of societal messages over the last several years that your power is evil. And yes, I would agree, undisciplined, untamed power can absolutely be evil. But the idea of masculine strength and masculine power being evil, you've got to be kidding me. What would the world do without that? Used for good, not for evil, but for good. James Cameron said this. He said, I always think of testosterone as a toxin that you have to slowly work out of your system. James Cameron, by the way, the filmmaker who made over $800 million in his career with movies like Terminator, Rambo, Aliens, True Lies, Titanic, and all of the Avatar movies, all of which were full of testosterone and hero energy, says it's a toxin that needs to be worked slowly out of your system. Right on, dude. Give me your check for $800 million. Let's see you cash it in and really put your money where your mouth is. Your power is evil. It's a message that comes to us from our society, and I get it. The reality of that message, and many, many, many people have been hurt by men not using power for good. Gillette and Moore say that we live in a time when people are generally uncomfortable with the warrior form of masculine energy, and for some very good reasons. Amen. Why? Because men have dominated. Men have dominated women. They have abused people physically for millennia. Men rape, abuse, kill, destroy, enslave, oppress, all of those things. Men, because of toxic energy, toxic warrior energy, fuel a sex trade that is a multiple billion-dollar industry. Perhaps you've seen the movie The Sound of Freedom. Men in the United States are responsible for creating the demand for that type of evil in the world. And I want to tell you, it's not just out there. Men, it is in here inside of us. How many of us, instead of pointing the finger where men use power in a destructive way, would instead look inside and say, how many times have I try to leverage power for myself in the form of greed, in the form of slandering somebody else to get what I wanted, in the form of stepping on somebody else at work, in the form of twisting stats or sales data or whatever to help me achieve my own things, my own objectives. Man, we need to look ourselves in the mirror and ask the question, are we using our God-given strength and power and warrior energy for good? Because the reality is, this foundational pillar of our life, this pillar of power, can be used for good, but it can also be used for evil. It's like rocket fuel. It can explode and cause a massive devastation, or it could be controlled and disciplined and measured, such that it would fuel a rocket that would launch a telescope into space where we would be able to see galaxies never before seen, never before even imagined. You see, our power needs discipline. It needs measured. It needs to grow. It needs to mature. It needs to become a man. Could it kill, steal, and destroy? Sure. But virtue, men, brings discipline where there was an undisciplined life, and goodness where evil used to rule. Do you see what's at stake here? Do you see what's at stake? In your world, in your life, in your world around you, where you need to sometimes show up and speak up and sometimes even act up in order to act for good in your world. We are not called upon just to bury this. We're not called upon just to set it aside. We're not called upon just to act like it's a bad thing or it's an evil thing. Instead, we are called upon to live for good in our world around us. I get it. I understand. I've had a tendency to, in my own life, bury my own power, to not trust it, to sometimes be afraid of it, to not step into it, to not lean into it, and to not use it for good. And other times to try to leverage it for my own advantage and ultimately for evil instead of good. Men, I understand. The question I have for you is, we take a look at this pivotal, most important foundational truth of our power is, how would we live a life of disciplined power? Here's the plan. How do you live a life of disciplined power? What do men of disciplined power do? Might be a better way to phrase that. Men of disciplined power, again, taking that rocket fuel, disciplining it, measuring it, making it work for good in the right time, in the right place, in the right proportion. What do men like that do with their power? I'm going to give you a couple of P's. I know there's a lot of P's in this, lots of P's. Passion, power, purpose, perspective. Here's a couple more. What do men of disciplined power do? They protect. They protect. They protect those who are most defenseless. I have a friend who's an MMA fighter, former MMA fighter. He now trains MMA fighters and has this whole gym where they bring these guys in and train them and take them out to fight, and it's just incredible. This guy recently had a baby boy, and his son, I think, is probably a year and a half now. I saw a post the other day of him, and he's just a tough-looking guy, man. He's a tough-looking guy. And he was with his son, and his son was just oohing and ahhing, and he's talking to this baby. So sweet. You know what? My buddy could break this kid in half. He could break most people I know in half. But instead, he chooses to protect this little kid, to raise him in strength, with his strength, to protect him, the most vulnerable thing in his life. Reminds me of the quote of Jesus when I think about this guy. Greater love has no one than this, than he would lay down his life for his friends. Greater love has no one than this, than he would lay down his life for his friends. Men, real strength protects. It protects our families. It protects our kids. It protects our girlfriends. It protects our wives. It protects our neighborhood. It steps in when somebody is getting abused or attacked. It's the thing that makes you walk on the street side of when you're walking down the street. It's the thing that makes you sit in the back when you're at a restaurant with your back to the wall, with your eye to the door. It's the thing that makes you think when you're in a theater, where's the exit? How would I save? How would I help protect people in this situation? It's the thing that's on guard and protecting those around you. What do men of disciplined power do? Well, they protect. They also provide. Men, that disciplined power in you is there to provide, not just for yourself, but to live selflessly for others around you. To work to provide for your family, to work to provide for others around you, to work to provide for those who are less fortunate, to work to provide and to instill life in those around you. And there's some of you who are listening to this who have not figured out how to launch out in life. Perhaps you are living in your parents' basement. You're 25, 26, 27, 37, however many years old. It is time for you to launch out. And I'm not talking about somebody who lives as a caregiver with one of their aging parents. It's a totally different situation. But you were made. There's something in you that is God-given, that's instilled, that's calling out in you. Get moving in life. Provide for yourself. Get moving. It is good for you to do that. And those of us who've been doing that for a while, we just want to invite you to the party. It's part of being a man. It's part of being a grown-up to start to provide, not only for yourself, but for people in your world. Protecting, providing. There's another thing that men of disciplined power do, and that is they promote. They don't make themselves the hero of the story. Instead, they promote others. I think about Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, where he talks about the mirror and window of leadership. Jim talks about looking in through the window and into the mirror in any given situation. If things are going great at work, look through the window and look at others that you can point to and say, you know what, that person did a great job here. Knowing that you may have set that person up for success. You promoted them. But you're looking out, and how can you dish out compliments here or there? And if something goes wrong, you look in the mirror and you ask the question, what could I have done better? The reality is thinking through the issue of promoting. It's not promoting yourself. It's promoting other people. It's sacrificial leadership. It's giving up yourself so that somebody else can gain. It's giving up yourself, giving up your own life so that others might be able to live around you. It's sacrificial love and lifting other people up. Man, that's what men of disciplined power do. They protect, they provide, and they promote. Imagine a world with me if men were like that, if that were the norm. People often ask me, are you talking about traditional manhood here? You talking about traditional values? No, I'm not. And here's why. because I think men traditionally have jacked this up. We've used power for ourselves. We've been greedy. We've fueled systems that have promoted ourselves. Instead, there's a different version of manhood that I'm talking about here that is redemptive manhood, where men take a look at this pillar of manhood called their power and say, how can I use that for good in my world? How can I use that around me to protect, provide, and promote others? Can you imagine a world like that? I can. And I want to be part of helping fuel that and helping you do that in your world. What would that look like in your life right where you live, in the life that you live in? Not in the life that you wish you had, but in the life you do have. Men, what would it look like for you to be a man of disciplined power in your world? I want to leave you like we normally do as we wrap up an episode with a gold nugget. You're on this path, you're on this journey of manhood, and all of a sudden you stumble on this piece of gold, this truth that you can anchor your life on. It's this. It's another quote from the rabbi, from Jesus, who says, "Whoever wills to save his life will lose it. And whoever wills to lose his life for me will find it." Whoever wills to save his life, to preserve and hang on to it, will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will ultimately find it. Men, the idea that I want you to anchor on today, write this on, memorize it, take a snapshot of it, whatever you need to do. You were designed to live a life of disciplined power. Men, learn to live in that and through that, and don't let anyone take it away from you. Learn to live in it and through it, and don't let anyone take it away from you. One of the distinctions of this podcast is not just to throw some inspirational, motivational type stuff out there and hope it lands somewhere, but to give you practical tools that you can hang on to. I've designed a PDF that goes along with this episode, and you can get it. It's absolutely free. I want you to go to Sherpa5280.com/the next stage. Sherpa, SHERPA, the letters, numbers, 5280.com/the next stage. Register there, and there's a tool there, a very practical tool that will just walk you through some questions about how you can begin to live a life of disciplined power. Absolutely free to you. 2-for-1 special here, 2-for-1 free special. Gather some men around you, some guys that you hang out with, maybe some guys you work out with or you work with, or whatever it is. Some guys around you. Listen to these podcasts together. Take a look at these PDFs. They're absolutely free. Gather together. Talk about them. Men, that is how you begin to learn. That is how you begin to grow. Well, thank you for joining me on this episode of The Next Stage. This podcast is designed specially for you to help you summit life's climb. If you find that it was helpful, I would love to hear from you. Email me at thenextstage@sherpa5280.com. Also, if this has been meaningful to you, share this with somebody in your world, and I really appreciate you joining us. Friends, join us on the next episode. We're going to be talking about living a life of purpose. It's going to be exciting. It's one of those 4 P's, passion, power. Purpose is next episode, and then perspective. Thanks, my friends. I appreciate you joining us, and we will talk to you on the next episode of The Next Stage. Go for it in your world today and live a life of disciplined power.